We've now watched the tape. We've had a little bit longer to sit with the game itself, and we just have to have an honest conversation. Not a bash fest, not a, oh, woe is me, not a talk down to the team kind of situation, but we have to have an honest assessment of what went wrong in Phoenix, Arizona. What went wrong for Michigan in the way they lost to TCU. In addition to that, at the end of this segment, I'm going to talk about Jim Harbaugh being reached out to by the Denver Broncos, give you my thoughts on that. But let's keep the first things first. When I watched Michigan go toe-to-toe with TCU, I couldn't help but feel like Michigan didn't really impose their will the way that we all expected them to. And what I mean by that is Michigan has made a living, made an identity and a culture on having their killer instinct. You know what I'm saying? Like, we think about Michigan, we think downhill, smash mouth. J.J. McCarthy said it during the week. It's going to be a smash fest if they want to stay in that 3-3-5 kind of defense. And it wasn't so much they didn't run the football frequently enough. To me, it was just situationally. A couple of play calls felt weird. 4th and goal, you got a Philly special dialed up. You know, like you don't want to get downhill and maybe just try and use that Joe Moore winning offensive line to push it through the end zone. 3rd and goal to open up the second half. We're throwing a screen out to Ronnie Bell. Again, you don't want to use those big human beings and try to pick up those 3 yards and get in the end zone that way when that's been your identity all year long. And I want to rephrase this, or I want to kind of take a step back. I am not questioning the play calling. I am, but I'm not at the same time. If it worked, I'm an idiot, right? If it worked, it's all hindsight is 2020. So I get that. I don't have an issue as much with the play call as I do with the mentality. The mentality of saying we're going to try and score another way when we've had this one way, this one formula being the bully on the block. That's who we are. That's who we've been all year long as Michigan. And then you get to the biggest moment, and you get to the red zone, you get to inside the 5-yard line, and you stray from that. I understand game flow is a thing. I understand that the good folks, Sharon Moore and Matt Weiss, they make a whole lot more money than me to call their offense, so I'm not questioning that. But I think when you talk about what went wrong and what you would like to have back, I would have liked to see, for my money, Michigan stay true to that smash fest kind of football within the 5-yard line. Like I said, it's a mentality thing. It's not a play calling thing. It's a mentality thing. Telling my offensive line and my backfield and my tight ends, hey, we trust y'all like we have all year long to go and move the opposition against their will to get us in the paint and get us points. Because that was really the difference in the game. 51-45. You get a touchdown instead of getting turned over on downs in the first drive of the game. You get 7 instead of 3. I know there's other things execution-wise that you look back and say, man, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot there. But just the mentality thing, for me, I was a little bit put out by that. Okay? If you haven't yet subscribed, would love to have you all at the party. A lot to talk about. Got the national championship game right around the corner. Recruiting from the Michigan Wolverines is something we're going to talk about a lot on this program. Transfer portal acquisitions, they've done really well so far. I venture to say they're not done just yet. Is Michigan in the portal? Keep an eye on that. We got you covered on this program, so make sure you're locked in. We're live on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1 Central, 2 Eastern. Jump in the live chat. We have a back and forth, a good conversation there. Hit the bell. Make sure you don't miss that. Also, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at JDPikel. The other thing that went wrong, and again, we're not bashing Michigan. Those of you that watch this program know I have a lot of good things to say about this program. I have enormous respect for Michigan. But when we look at the tape, Michigan did not play well in space. And some of this, you just kind of tip your cap to TCU and say, you schemed up a great game. Sonny Dykes, in my opinion, one of the best offensive minds in college football. He's a wizard, did a lot of really good things well, put them in favorable positions to succeed. A lot of misdirection with the motions, a lot of zone run schemes that TCU capitalized on. They created a lot of favorable one-on-one situations. And so I don't have an issue so much with the scheme. I have an issue with not adapting. Because when you look from the first half to the second half, Michigan's a really solid, I'll rephrase that. Michigan is one of the best second half teams in the country. I think they proved that offensively with how they came out swinging second half of that football game. Defensively, it felt like just got gashed and gashed and gashed. And just conceptually, I'm not even going to talk through the X's and O's of it. I would have just liked to see Michigan maybe take a step back with how aggressive they were being defensively. Because you saw multiple times they would trigger really quickly on that run. They would get downhill quick, fast, in a hurry, and I love that. I love the aggressive nature of it. But when you get gashed 4 or 5 times, it might be time to rethink that. It might be time to say, hey, take a half step longer before you trigger downhill. Hey, let's not crash so hard with our defensive ends. Let's play that a little more honestly. Again, just one man's opinion. Those good people in Ann Arbor, Jesse Minter makes a whole lot more money than me to call his defense, so I don't question his play calling. But when I look at the tape, which is the luxury I have in hindsight 2020, when I look at the tape, that's something that's kind of a head scratcher for me. Because Michigan did it so well all year long. I mean, we talked about it a ton throughout the year. They are so great at adapting. I mean, they used, at one point it was like some ridiculous number with the second half score for Michigan. It was like 200 to like, I want to say close to single digits for Michigan during a stretch of 4 to 5 games the second half of the season. Like, they were just so dominant. But we didn't see that same adaptation in the second half of this football game. Not taking anything away from TCU, because they won that game in very, I think, convincing fashion on that day. But when you look at what you have in-house at Michigan, I think it's frustrating to not have played your best game when it was required, and to look back and say, man, there was a couple of things we probably could have tweaked to get different results in that second half of that football game. So, the conversation for this team and the rallying cry, and something that I am still bought into for this team, is the job is not finished. They said it after Ohio State. Big-time victory in Columbus, proved a point to the college football world. Said it after the Big Ten championship, proved a point there as well. And I just wonder if the job's not finished mantra became the focus too much. Because the end result for them, the end goal was, let's win a national title, man. We've been to the college football playoff. We beat Ohio State. We've got a Big Ten title before. We're not here for that now. We're here for the natty. Let's get it done. And I love that approach. I love the heart behind that. I love the attitude behind that, because that's what all great teams need, man. That's what every elite organization needs to have, that hunger, have that style of play, of achievement. Like, I love that. But I just wonder, with a team like this, where you replaced a lot of guys on defense, have a lot of guys at different positions than you had the year before, it wasn't the most experienced team, which is fine. I mean, that's not something I'm worried about. But when you start to focus more on the end result, when you start to focus more on the job becoming finished, I just wonder if TCU had their undivided attention. Not saying that's the case. I'm just saying I wonder that. Because if you roll the ball out there 10 times, I have a hard time imagining that Michigan wouldn't win the majority of those. I'm not saying they go 10 for 10, obviously, because they lost that game to TCU. But you feel like, from a personnel standpoint and from what you have, from a matchup standpoint, you are more than capable of winning that football game. Coming in within a score of winning that football game, I think, proves just as much with the slow start that they had. So I wonder if the approach to jobs not finished caused them to overlook TCU just a little bit, because it did not look like the Michigan team that we've seen all year long and came to expect. I keep saying it. Not taking anything away from TCU, but that's just the way that it felt to me. So, looking forward, there is a report that the Denver Broncos have reached out to a one Jim Harbaugh. And would he do it? I don't know. I think at some point it's very reasonable to assume that Jim Harbaugh will get back to the NFL ranks, just from quality of life standpoint, y'all. Like, the college game has become a matter of 12 months a year. You got to recruit. You got to do NIL. You got to recruit your own roster. You got to make sure you're keeping boosters happy. You got to make sure your team's prepped through spring ball, and then you got to hit the second wave of the portal. Like, there is so much that goes into it, to where you're going to see a lot of good people in college football get burnt out and go do something else. And it's hard to knock them for it. However, if Jim Harbaugh were to leave Michigan right now, I believe that would be a mistake. Just because he has done so much legwork to push Michigan back to the top of college football. What Michigan was and what it is now, there's a lot of different variables that have come in and out of Ann Arbor. Jim Harbaugh being there being the common denominator, he is the reason why they're at where they're at. As a program with some staying power, he's done all the legwork to push it back to the top of the hill, and I think they still have a little bit more left to accomplish. They have a little bit more. Like they say, the job is not finished yet. And I would just love to see Jim Harbaugh be able to reap the rewards of what he's worked so hard to get Michigan to be. That's the way that I feel. Will he do it? I don't know, man. A lot that's going to happen here throughout the next couple of weeks. I'm sure we'll talk about it more. How much mutual interest is there? Again, no idea at this point. But I would feel like it's a mistake for Jim Harbaugh with all that's still available to him, all that's still left to be done, and that he can now get done, that they're very much capable of getting done. I would love to see him see that through, personally. So as a program for Michigan now, we talked about it after the loss. On New Year's Eve, we talked about it with you. The job is not finished, and they have reset the expectation, reset the standard, rather, in Ann Arbor for this team. It used to be, let's just beat Ohio State. Did that twice now. Let's win the Big Ten belt back, man. Let's find a way to get that thing back to Ann Arbor. Did that twice now, 2 years in a row. Job isn't finished. I fully expect this team to be back in the same situation this time next year. We're going to talk about it a lot, I'm sure, throughout the summer and spring ball and what Michigan can do and won't do and will do. I think they're going to have a really good shot to get back to this kind of game. They'll have the work cut out for them, but they have now recalibrated across college football the way that we view Michigan. And that goes for internally as well. No longer is it just good enough to win the Big Ten title. No longer is it just good enough to beat Ohio State. The expectation is next time you get to the college football playoff, you come back with some hardware. And they're not shying away from that, man. They are some dogs. They are some elite competitors. You've seen it multiple times. A lot of guys on that team, J.J. McCarthy included, they're going to run it back next year. I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to see the way they approach this offseason, the way that they attack fall camp and spring ball and winter conditioning, and then the way that we get to see them come out this time next year and really take the field for the first time in 2023. I am very, very curious to see how Michigan responds to these now new expectations externally, and very fascinated to watch how Jim Harbaugh handles all of this NFL buzz this time around. But I promise you, we will keep you covered. We'll keep you locked in for all of it. Without all the hocus pocus, without all the extra stuff, the Hard Count, the On3 YouTube channel, we got you covered every single day. Again, we're live on Tuesday, 1 Central, 2 Eastern, so tomorrow, and we're live on Thursday, 1 Central, 2 Eastern. Come hang out with us, get in the live chat. We have a real good time, some interaction back and forth. Just a blast, man. It's y'all's show. Nick Break, Lifting Heavy. This is the People's Program. We appreciate you. We love you. We're going to keep the party rolling, and we will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.